Oh man, explaining bosses in less than a minute is a pretty big challenge for me. Let's see if I can do it. I never thought I'd be making a video about Legion dungeons. Halls of Valor alongside a few other legacy dungeons are being added to the Mythic Plus table in Season 1. Feel free to use the timeline to jump to whichever boss you're interested in. Also be sure to hit that like button down below if you end up enjoying this video. Let's dive in. Approaching Hymdall. Tanks first and foremost, just be aware of the Bloodletting Sweep cast. This will deal a moderate amount of tank damage. Hymdall will also randomly throw blades at a random target. Just be sure to move away from these whenever possible. And then the main meat of the fight comes from the storm drakes that sweep across the bridge throughout the encounter. Whenever he calls these drakes, look towards the sky to identify which lane they will be flying through. It will always happen in sets of 3. You'll want to move the boss accordingly. As soon as the storm breath hits, it'll also spawn ball lightning, mini electrified tornadoes that will move perpendicular to the storm breath cast. Simply rinse and repeat until you defeat Hymdall. Before this boss spawns, you'll need to defeat each of the mini-bosses on either side. Pay attention to their mechanics because Hyrja will channel power from whichever mini-boss area she is tanked near. Solstin possesses the Eye of the Storm, while Olmir casts Sanctify. I personally recommend starting the boss where Solstin fell. This is so she'll start with the Eye of the Storm cast, though it's up to you wherever you want to start. Whenever she inevitably casts this spell, be sure your entire group is inside of the bubble, and healers just make sure you're ready for the group damage. Tanks, following these special mechanics, you're going to be hit with Shield of Light, which is a tank buster that will also knock you back. What's unique about this ability is that anyone will be hit within its path, so your group needs to be aware of your positioning. To maximize, or I guess to minimize your movement, I recommend aiming your back towards the other side of the room so you can easily move the boss. When on the other side, Hyrja will first target a player with Expel Light. Simply move away from others. Also, she will cast Sanctify, which is a brutal ability. When this is being channeled, I recommend backing away and prioritizing dodging orbs instead of dealing damage. Every time she casts this empowered ability, be sure to swap sides since she'll gain damage with the next subsequent cast. After bouncing back and forth a few times, Hyrja should eventually fall. Fenryr is an odd fight because you'll have to fight this beast twice. Once until he reaches about 60% health, which is when he'll flee from his wounds. You then need to hunt him down to finish off the remaining health. When you push him to 60%, you technically leave combat, allowing for your healer to grab mana and for cooldowns to recover. Anyways, Fenryr is a simple stack spread fight. The reason you want to stack is for the Claw Frenzy cast, which is a tank buster that also does shared damage among everyone within 12 yards. Then on every Ravenous Leap cast, your group will want to spread to make sure you keep the bleed applications to a minimum. And then finally, Fenryr will cast Unnerving Howl, which interrupts spell casting. So, unlike Jack, don't be casting. When you hunt down Fenryr for Phase 2, there will be ads that spawn. Your DPS will want to cleave these down. And then the very last mechanic in Phase 2 only will be Scent of Blood, where Fenryr will fixate a target and chase them for 6 seconds. You can counter this with a major defensive, immunity, or just by running away. After a successful hunt, you are going to be able to move on to the next boss. Skovald is a 2-phase fight that can get pretty chaotic. First things first, tanks just be mindful of the Savage Blade cast. Be sure to use either defensives or just have mitigation active. Skovald will then target players with Fellblaze Rush. This player needs to move away from others to prevent anyone getting cleaved. Skovald will then cast Ragnarok, a lethal AoE damaging ability. The way you counter this is by using and standing behind the Aegis. This item is typically used by the tank, but anyone can use it if needed. After the Ragnarok cast, Skovald will steal the shield for himself and enter Phase 2. Almost immediately he will use the shield for himself. Move behind the shield to continue damaging him. During this phase, he will spawn ads that will leave void zones. Kill these ads and avoid standing in the fire on the ground. Once these ads are defeated, you'll repeat Phase 1 again. Similar to Fenryr, it's best to stay near melee and stacked and then spread when needed. Once Skovald falls, it's time to face off against Odyn himself. Odyn will target random players with Spear of Light, which will deal damage and spawn orbs that will deal damage if you come into contact with them. Just be sure to move away whenever they spawn. Next, Odyn will spawn a Stormforged Obliterator, which is the kill priority. It will cast an ability called Surge. This needs to be kicked at all costs. Shortly after the ad spawning, Odyn will cast Radiant Tempest, which is a massive AoE circle that will be lethal if caught in it. That's why I recommend taking Odyn in the corner of the circular room. Right after Radiant Tempest finishes, Odyn will shatter all the active spears, causing them to disappear, but they'll also shoot out orbs in all directions. Focus on dodging these orbs first. Then you'll enter Phase 2. All players will be marked with a unique runic buff. You're going to want to match with the appropriate colored rune, and you'll gain a huge damage buff for a period of time. This is a good time to use cooldowns if you have any. Once this buff falls off, it's right back to the first phase. Repeat these mechanics until Odyn reaches 80% health. At this point, you have proven your might and Odyn yields. I've really been liking these shorter videos. I hope you guys are finding them useful. Keep an eye out for my full-length dungeon walkthroughs in the near future by hitting that subscribe button. As always, huge shout out to my dope-ass Patreons who allow me to make these types of guides. Without them, there'd be a lot less of this. So, thank you. I hope you guys are all staying happy, healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.